Have you ever asked yourself why, in an era overflowing with convenience, most of us feel weaker and more lost than ever? We're living in a harsh reality where comfort has become a sweet poison. Every day, you're surrounded by waves of cheap dopamine, the chaotic noise of social media, and the temptation to run from anything difficult. Little by little, we're losing our survival instinct, accepting a passive life, letting emotions and circumstances shove us around. But stop and face this raw truth. Real strength has never come from a comfort zone. It doesn't sprout from ease or empty reassurance. A person's grit is forged only through pressure, through silent sacrifice, and through ruthless discipline, especially in the moments when no one is watching. Now imagine a different version of yourself. A mind as calm as still water, yet as sharp as a blade. A spirit unmoved by storms, and a presence that earns respect before you even speak. That isn't a fantasy. That is the destination of the journey we're about to walk together. If you're sick of living like prey, and you're ready to kill the old you so you can be reborn, then this video is exactly the signal you've been searching for. Today, we're not sitting here to chase sweet comfort or a dose of mental doping that makes you feel fired up for a moment, then fades out. We're about to step into a serious, deep mental operation. If the opening exposed the alarming reality of weakness and passivity, then what comes next is the detailed map that helps you escape that maze. This is where we uncover 10 core principles, 10 ultimate rules of discipline and inner strength, built to completely transform the way you think, act, and show up in this life. Why is this topic so important and urgent right now? Look at the modern world we're living in. The world has never been this loud and chaotic. Your focus is being torn apart every second by thousands of notifications, by short-term entertainment engineered to spike dopamine, and by society's invisible pressure. In an environment like that, peace and stability don't happen naturally. They must be taken through discipline and wisdom. If you don't actively build your own rules, you will become a pawn on someone else's chessboard. Lack of presence, impulsive emotions, and habits of compromise are turning millions into easy prey, manipulated and swallowed by circumstance. But you were not born to accept that mediocre script. In the next few minutes, we're going to dissect every layer of strength. We'll start by learning how to stop living like prey to reshape the posture of a strong person, train sharpen cold focus to cut through all noise, and master the art of silence like a blade, turning silence into the sharpest kind of power. These aren't empty theories. They're gritty, practical, psychological strategies with real-world application. Think of them as a new operating system, replacing the outdated beliefs that have been holding you back. And our ultimate goal isn't just to improve a few skills or habits. We're aiming for total transformation, from mastering the turbulent inner world to earning real respect from others, and at the peak, having the courage to kill the old you ruthlessly. These principles will be your lighthouse, guiding you not just to build a lifestyle, but to create a legacy, a lasting inheritance of value and character. Take a deep breath and open your mind, because what we're about to discuss could be the turning point you've been waiting for. The moment you finally meet the strongest version of yourself. To truly understand and apply the principles we're about to discuss, we first need to step back and look at the bigger picture of human history. What you're about to hear isn't some brand new invention of the digital age, and it's not another shallow self-help trend drifting across social media. This is the distilled essence of an ancient current of wisdom, a code of strength that has endured for thousands of years, stretching from the unbreakable Stoic philosophers of ancient Rome to the legendary samurai warriors of the East. Picture the world where these ideas were born. These were eras of chaos, of endless war and ruthless survival. In that reality, there was no room for weakness or complaint. People were forced to forge an inner core as solid as stone, facing death and loss as part of daily life. Carl Jung, the brilliant psychologist, and Miyamoto Musashi, Japan's greatest swordsman, though separated by time and culture, shared one common truth. The greatest enemy of a human being is not outside, but inside the mind itself. This is the inner war, the merciless internal battle between the instinct to seek comfort, laziness, and fear, and the hunger to rise, the discipline to endure, and the power of self-control. Why does this matter to us today? Even though we no longer carry swords into battle, the war has never ended. It has only changed its form. Instead of blades and spears, we face distraction, emptiness, and the pressure to conform to the crowd's mediocre standards. Great men and women throughout history didn't become strong through luck. They became great because they chose the harder path. They understood that discipline is not punishment. It is freedom. They knew that silence is not emptiness. It is where strength is stored. The system of thought we're approaching is built on this raw truth. Strength doesn't come from avoiding pain, but from the ability to face it and transform it. This is a philosophy of action, where your value is determined by what you do in the dark when no one is watching, not by what you brag about under the spotlight. These principles are a compass, helping you reorient yourself in a life that moves too fast, reconnecting you to the primal power that has been sleeping inside you. As we go deeper into each rule, remember this. You are stepping into a great spiritual legacy, one where weakness is discarded and strength of character is honored as one of the highest human virtues. Let's begin the journey of rebuilding yourself from the deepest place of all, the source of every victory and every defeat, your mind. Before you can conquer any external goal, whether it's your career, status, or relationships, you must win the inner war. That is the foundation of the first pillar, inner mastery. To build an inner core that cannot be shaken by life's storms, we need to fully understand and apply three essential principles. Sharpen cold focus, rule over emotion, and use silence like a blade. The first principle, and the foundation of all effective action, is sharpen cold focus. In today's world, we often believe distraction is a random accident, something that happens when we just happen to see a phone notification. But the truth is far more brutal. Focus isn't lost in a single moment. It's slowly eroded, second by second, every time you compromise with distractions, every time you mindlessly scroll, every time you waste your mental energy on meaningless conversations. Cold focus isn't just the ability to pay attention to one thing. It's the ruthless ability to decide what truly matters, and to flat out refuse everything that pulls you away from it. This is a new kind of power for the information age. While the world is obsessed with multitasking, the person with cold focus becomes an outlier. It requires you to actively build a strict environment, establish non-negotiable habits, and cultivate a razor-sharp mindset. You must imagine your focus like a laser, narrow, high intensity, and capable of cutting straight through obstacles. Without sharpening this ability, your mind will remain a chaotic transit station for junk information, and you will never accumulate enough energy to build anything valuable. But sharp focus becomes meaningless if you blindly let emotions drive you. That's why we need the second principle, rule over emotion. One of the biggest human mistakes is identifying with our emotions. When they're angry, they scream. When they're afraid, they run. Uncontrolled emotion is the most dangerous enemy because it pushes you into impulsive action and steals your control over your life. But understand this clearly. Mastering emotion is not about suppressing or denying it. Trying to bury emotions only creates psychological time bombs. Rule over them. Emotion is the art of observation and separation. It teaches you to step back and see anger or sadness like clouds passing through the sky of your mind, rather than becoming a storm that drags you away. This mastery lives in the precious space between stimulus and response. In that space, you have the power to choose a deliberate response instead of reacting on instinct. Emotional calm is the highest expression of inner strength. It makes you steady, reliable, and commands respect. A person who cannot be provoked is a person who cannot be defeated. And when you have both cold focus and emotional rule, you gain the third weapon, subtle but devastatingly powerful. Use silence like a blade. We live in a world that worships noise, where people compete to speak so they can be heard, compete to explain so they can be validated. But in that environment, silence becomes a rare and terrifying form of power. Use silence like a blade is not telling you to be quiet out of fear or insecurity. It is the intentional silence of someone in control. Silence allows you to observe what others miss, to hear what isn't being said, and to hold a mysterious, unreadable position. While others rush to expose their thoughts and weaknesses through constant talking, the person who uses silence like a blade keeps the most important cards in their hand. They don't need to explain. They don't need to justify their actions. That restraint creates an invisible weight, forcing others to pay attention and stay cautious. Silence, used correctly, is the loudest roar of confidence. These three principles, sharpen cold focus, rule over emotion, and use silence like a blade, do not operate separately. They interlock and reinforce one another, forming a complete system of defense and offense for the mind. Cold focus helps you see the target clearly. Rule over emotion helps you keep a steady grip in rough waters. Silence helps you preserve energy so you can strike with decisive action. This is the core of inner mastery, a state where you are no longer a slave to circumstance or emotion, but the ruler of your own inner kingdom. To truly feel the power of inner mastery, let your mind drift into a metaphor that's cinematic, yet completely real. Imagine you are a general standing in the middle of a brutal, ancient battlefield. All around you is total chaos. The clash of steel, the screams of soldiers, clouds of dust, and the thick scent of fear hanging in the air. In that madness, most people, those ruled by emotion, react with panic. They swing their swords wildly with no purpose, their breath frantic, their minds swept away by the current of terror. That is the image of weakness, of those who have lost sharpened cold focus. But you are different. In the eye of the storm, you stand there, still and steady like a mountain of stone. Your eyes don't dart around searching for escape. They lock in with ruthless precision on the smallest movement of your opponent. Your breathing is slow and deep. You don't let anger or fear grab the steering wheel. Instead, you observe them. You accept their presence, but you do not allow them to control your actions. That is rule over emotion. And when the enemy charges with loud, violent aggression, you don't roar back. You answer with a strike that is precise, decisive, and cold. Your silence in that moment is more terrifying than any scream. That is, use silence like a blade. Now bring that heroic image into the reality of the 21st century. Your battlefield today may not be filled with swords and spears. but it might be a tense meeting room, a heated argument with someone you love, or simply a war against non-stop phone notifications. Consider this common situation. You're in an important meeting, and a coworker deliberately makes a provocative comment to undermine your credibility in front of everyone. Your natural instinct, the prey inside you, wants to jump up immediately. Your heart races, blood rushes to your head, and your mouth is ready to fire off rushed explanations or angry counterattacks. If you do that, you've already lost. You've let emotion lead, and you've handed control to the other person. But someone with inner mastery responds completely differently. In the moment you're attacked, you activate Sharpen cold focus. You clearly recognize the other person's goal, to knock you off balance. Instead of reacting instantly, you pause. You take a deep breath to reset your nervous system. That's rule over emotion in action. And then, instead of over-explaining or arguing head-to-head, you choose use silence like a blade. You look straight into their eyes and hold a silence for 3 to 5 seconds. No avoidance, no confusion. That silence creates enormous, invisible pressure. It makes the other person, who is waiting for you to defend yourself, feel uneasy. They start wondering if they said something wrong or whether you're holding a trump card. Your silence flips the power dynamic. From the one being attacked, you become the one controlling the space. And when you finally speak, your voice is low, slow, and heavy, without a trace of shakiness. That is real power. Or look at focus in your work. Most people today work in a half-awake trance, doing tasks while checking messages, scrolling social media for dopamine. The result is that they're always busy, but they rarely produce anything exceptional. Now imagine someone who applies Sharpen cold focus. When they enter work mode, they build an unbreakable fortress. Phone off, door closed. Every distraction is ruthlessly kept outside. They sink completely into the task, like a diver going deep into the ocean where the surface noise disappears into absolute stillness. In those hours, they do not exist to the outside world. They don't answer messages instantly. They don't fear missing any online drama. That ruthlessness toward distractions is actually the highest kindness to their goal. And when they come out of that state, they carry results that would take other people a full week to produce. This isn't magic. It's the inevitable outcome of mastering the mind. These examples show that inner mastery isn't some abstract concept reserved for sages on mountaintops. It is the most practical survival toolkit for modern life. When you learn cold focus, rule over emotion, and use silence as a weapon, you don't just solve problems more effectively. You radiate a presence that commands respect. You become the one who sets the tempo in every situation, like a solid rock in the middle of a raging river. No matter how violent the current becomes, it can only flow around you. It cannot carry you away. If the first pillar is about building an unbreakable fortress inside your mind, then the second pillar is about how you open the gates of that fortress and step into the world. A strong inner life becomes meaningless if it's wrapped in a timid exterior and a small, submissive way of living. The world can't read your thoughts. They can only judge you by how you show up. That's why the next transformation is called the posture of power, shaped by 3 survival principles. Stop living like prey, command respect without asking, and patience is savage. Let's start with the most foundational principle at the level of perception. Stop living like prey. In nature, it's not hard to tell a predator from prey. Prey moves in fear, eyes constantly scanning for danger, body shrinking to take up as little space as possible, ready to run at any moment. Sadly, In modern society, most people are unconsciously applying these exact behaviors to everyday life. They apologize even when they did nothing wrong. They speak in a small voice when sharing their opinions. They force a nervous laugh when they're disrespected. And they constantly try to please others just to avoid conflict. Stop living like prey is not telling you to become a bully or an aggressive person. It's a call to immediately stop apologizing for your existence. When you live like prey, you send an invisible but powerful signal. I'm weak, I'm unsafe, override me. And society's instinct, brutal as it is, responds accordingly. The opposite of victim posture requires you to claim your space. It's a heavy presence. You stand tall, you hold steady eye contact, and you are not afraid to make people uncomfortable if that's what it takes to protect your values. This confidence isn't loud. It's the stillness of someone who knows exactly who they are and what they're capable of. Once you've shifted your posture from prey to owner, you reach the next critical principle. Command respect without asking. There is a ruthless paradox in social relationships. The more you crave and beg for respect, the less respect you receive. Many people believe respect can be demanded with words. You have to respect me. But in reality, respect is a natural response to the value and boundaries you enforce. You cannot convince someone to value you if you keep discounting yourself by tolerating bad behavior. Command respect. Without asking runs on the mechanics of boundaries and consequences. Respect is built when you have non-negotiable standards. If someone crosses your boundary, whether through their words, your time, or their commitments, you don't need to raise your voice or argue. You simply enforce the consequence. Withdraw your attention, refuse to cooperate, or decisively walk away. Action is 1,000 times more lethal and persuasive than speech. When you are willing to turn your back on what doesn't meet your standards, you send a clear message. Your value is not up for negotiation. People around you will automatically adjust their behavior to match that standard, not because they want to, but because they must if they want continued access to you. The final piece that completes the posture of power is a concept that's often completely misunderstood. Patience is savage. We usually think of patience as gentle, passive, even submissive. But in the context of strength and strategy, patience is a heavy offensive weapon. In a world addicted to instant gratification, where people rush decisions, rush reactions, and rush into quitting, the person who can be patient becomes the most dangerous person in the room. Patience is savage defines patience as calculated ambush. It's like a hunting leopard stalking prey. It can lie completely still for hours, not because it's lazy, but because it's waiting for the perfect moment to deliver the finishing strike. This kind of patience demands nerves of steel, so you don't get swept up in the crowd's frantic rhythm. When you possess this savage patience, you don't react based on temporary emotion. You move according to long-term calculation. You accept slowing down to observe more clearly. You accept silence so your opponent reveals openings, and you accept building resources in the dark, so that when you finally act, the victory is absolute. Together, these three principles form a single, powerful system. Stop living like prey reshapes your posture and your default energy. Command respect. Without asking, establishes the rules and protects your dignity. And patience is savage gives you the time strategy to win the long game. This isn't about performing a role to impress people. It's about restructuring the way you interact with the physical and social world. When you internalize these ideas, you no longer walk into a room hoping to be accepted. You walk in with the certainty of someone who knows they hold the steering wheel of their destiny. And the outside world is simply a mirror, reflecting the stability you've built within. To understand the massive difference between the mindset of the weak and the posture of the strong, let's step into a typical social interaction. Imagine you're walking into a party filled with strangers, maybe a networking event or an important gathering. This is where stop living like prey shows itself most clearly. Watch someone with a prey mentality. The moment they step through the door, their body language immediately shrinks. Their shoulders sink, their eyes flick rapidly around the room, but they don't dare hold eye contact with anyone for more than 2 seconds because they fear confrontation. They move too fast, as if they're apologizing for taking up other people's space. When they start a conversation, they often give a nervous little laugh, constantly nod in agreement, even when they don't fully understand what's being said, and fill every silent gap with small talk because they're terrified of awkwardness. And the result? They become invisible. Or worse, they become a target for people who like to dominate and manipulate because they've sent a clear signal that their boundaries are soft. Now look at someone who has shed that mentality. When they walk in, they don't rush. They claim space by moving at their own natural pace, not pressured to speed up or slow down to match the rhythm around them. They hold an upright posture, chest open, an ancient biological signal of fearlessness. When they make eye contact, it's direct, warm, but steady. They don't smile to please people. They smile when something is genuinely worth smiling at. Their presence isn't threatening, but it is affirming. I'm here, and I'm comfortable with myself. That inner comfort naturally makes others feel safe and drawn to them. That's not arrogance. That's the grounded strength of someone who no longer lives like prey. Next, let's see how command respect without asking works in a competitive workplace. Imagine you have a coworker or partner who constantly shows up late, cancels meetings at the last minute, or sends work requests late at night with no warning. Most people respond by complaining. You might say, "Why are you doing this to me? You need to respect my time." Or you might get angry, but still reluctantly comply. In every one of these cases, you're begging for respect. You're handing your power to them and hoping they'll change out of pity or morality. But the harsh truth is, they won't change. Because your actions, still doing the work, still waiting, contradict your words. A person who lives by command, respect without asking, handles this very differently. They don't complain. They don't lecture. They act. If the other person is more than 15 minutes late with no legitimate reason, they leave. No long blame-filled message, just the simple fact that they're no longer there. If they receive a work message at midnight, they don't respond. And they don't get emotional about it. They wait until the next morning and reply professionally, as if that message was never sent during forbidden hours. By setting these invisible, electric fences, they teach people how to treat them. The other person quickly learns the rule. If you want to work with this person, you have to be on time and professional. Respect is established automatically, without a single request ever being spoken. Finally, let's illustrate the power of patience is savage through a tense negotiation or conflict. Imagine you're in a high-stakes deal where everyone is trying to close quickly. Time pressure is heavy, and the other side keeps throwing rapid offers at you to overwhelm your thinking. An impatient person fears missing the opportunity, FOMO. They rush into unfavorable terms, or they lash out when they feel pressured. They act from fear, not strategy. But with patience is savage, you turn time into a weapon. You don't rush to respond. You're willing to let the negotiation hang for days, shenji weeks if necessary. You understand a brutal truth. The person who needs the result faster is the one who loses. The savagery of patience is that you can sit inside discomfort that other people cannot tolerate. While the other side grows anxious, overthinks, and starts lowering their demands just to break the silence, you stay calm and observant. You're playing a long chess game. You wait until all the cards are on the table, until the other person's emotions are drained. And then, and only then, you make the final decision. That decision, made from stillness and careful calculation, often delivers an absolute win. That is the clearest proof that patience is not passive waiting. It is the calculated hunting behavior of the strong. We've walked through the journey of mastering the inner world and shaping the outer presence. But all of that is nothing more than glossy paint over a rotting wall. If we never touch the most painful and most glorious part of growth, core transformation. This isn't patchwork repair. This is complete rebirth. The third pillar, transformation and legacy, is built on 4 decisive principles. Kill the old you ruthlessly. Detach from what drains you. Discipline is your weapon, and build a legacy, not just a lifestyle. Let's start with a brutal truth most self-help books try to avoid. You cannot become a new person while stubbornly clinging to the old one. Kill the old. You ruthlessly declares that real change doesn't begin with adding new habits, new skills, or new knowledge. It begins with eliminating. You can't build a castle on the foundation of a straw hut. The old you, the lazy, fearful, procrastinating version filled with excuses, will always resist change. It will drag you back to the comfort zone with familiar routines and limiting beliefs. That's why true transformation demands a psychologically lethal act. You must kill that old version of yourself ruthlessly. That means you stop negotiating with the limits you once accepted. You look in the mirror and admit the person standing there is no longer qualified to enter the next chapter of your life. This is painful because it requires separation from what feels most familiar. But just as a phoenix must burn into ashes before it can rise in glory, you too must allow the old self to die so your real potential can come alive. Running alongside that inner destruction is the principle, detach from what drains you. Many of us feel exhausted not because we work too hard, but because we carry too much useless baggage. We keep toxic relationships because we fear loneliness. We maintain pointless habits out of inertia. We cling to environments that no longer help us grow. Your energy is limited. If you keep handing it out to things that drain you, you'll have nothing left to build your future. Detach from what drains you is a declaration of war against wasted energy. Detachment here doesn't mean indifference or coldness. It's intelligent self-protection. It's reclaiming ownership over your time and your energy. You must be brave enough to cut ties with people who constantly pull you down. Decisive enough to delete the apps that steal your hours, and cold enough to release the expectations other people place on your shoulders. When you drop the stones tied to your feet, moving forward becomes lighter and freer than you ever thought possible. So once you've cleared the wreckage of the past, what do you use to build the future? That's where discipline is your weapon enters. In popular culture, discipline is often misunderstood as suffering or the loss of freedom. But in the philosophy of strength, discipline is the ultimate weapon, the only tool that can protect you against life's chaos. Motivation is a liar. It shows up when you feel excited and disappears the moment things get hard. Discipline is loyal. Discipline isn't a performance for social media. Discipline is your weapon, points to the small, boring actions repeated in the dark when no one is watching. It's waking up on time, even when it's cold. It's finishing the work, even when you feel zero inspiration. Discipline is the bridge between goals and results. It carries you through your worst days. It keeps you on course when your emotions beg you to turn away. It's not natural talent, but consistency and disciplined action that builds frightening inner strength and lasting respect. And finally, what is all this pain and iron discipline for? The answer is in the principle: build a legacy, not just a lifestyle. We live in the age of lifestyle, where people are obsessed with projecting a glamorous image. Luxury travel, expensive brands, a life designed for display. But lifestyle is shallow. It disappears the moment you stop spending money or stop posting photos. It's empty. Legacy, on the other hand, is depth. A legacy doesn't have to mean having your name in history books or building skyscrapers. A legacy is living a meaningful life, creating lasting value that can remain even when you're no longer here. It could be the way you raise your children to become good human beings, the knowledge you pass down to the next generation, or the integrity you refuse to compromise at work. A legacy is built from thousands of small, consistent, intentional actions every day. When you shift your focus from how it looks, lifestyle, to what it creates, legacy, you find an endless source of drive. You no longer live for empty likes, you live for a real mission. These 4 principles form a closed loop of transformation. You kill the old you ruthlessly. Cut off unnecessary burdens, detach from what drains you. Use discipline as your tool of creation. Discipline is your weapon. And aim every effort toward a higher purpose. Build a legacy, not just a lifestyle. This isn't just a formula for success. It's a path to become immortal in your own mind and in the lives of the people around you. To visualize the process of kill the old you ruthlessly in the most realistic way, look to the natural world. Watch a snake shed its skin. It is not a gentle or comfortable process. The snake must rub itself against sharp rocks, accepting pain to rip open the old skin that has become tight and hardened. In that moment, it becomes temporarily blind and completely vulnerable. But if it doesn't do it, that old skin will restrain its growth and kill it. Your life works by the same law. Imagine a man, we'll call him the seeker, who decides the current version of himself is no longer acceptable. He realizes that pointless weekend hangouts, toxic gossip, and the habit of procrastination are dragging him to the bottom. He chooses to execute kill the old you ruthlessly. What happens next? Not applause, but brutal loneliness. This is where detach from what drains you is tested in real life. The seeker starts declining invitations to drink and waste time. He leaves group chats filled with nothing but rumors. He stops following celebrities who do nothing but flex on social media. And what happens? Old friends start calling him arrogant, weird, or someone who forgot where he came from. That feeling of being pushed out is the price of detachment. There will be nights when he sits alone in his room, staring at a silent phone, wondering if he's doing the right thing. But it's inside that solitude that transformation begins. He realizes he didn't lose friends. He removed energy parasites. The empty space those people leave behind becomes room for something new, something more valuable to enter. This detachment is like pruning diseased branches so the tree can redirect its life force upward toward the sun. Next, look at how discipline is your weapon works in the dark. Don't think about polished gym videos on Instagram with heroic music in the background. Real discipline looks boring and ugly. Picture a writer trying to finish the book of his life. No one is standing beside him cheering. No one is paying him in advance. It's just him and a blank page at 4 a.m., while the whole world is asleep. There are days he feels hopeless, convinced everything he writes is trash. Motivation left him a long time ago. But he still sits there. He still types. Why? Because discipline is your weapon. He uses discipline as a weapon to fight laziness and the doubting voice in his head. He understands that every sentence written while exhausted is a brick in the castle he's building. Discipline isn't doing extraordinary things every day. It's doing ordinary things with extraordinary consistency. That silent, repetitive, almost mind-numbing chain of actions is what separates the dreamer from the builder. Finally, compare two images to clearly see the difference between lifestyle and legacy. Imagine character A. He works only to make money to buy luxury cars and designer clothes with oversized logos. He posts check-ins at the most expensive resorts just to prove to people he doesn't even like that he's successful. His life looks bright on the outside, but hollow on the inside. When he hits financial trouble, those items become burdens, and the friends around him for the glamour disappear. That is the trap of building a lifestyle. Now look at character B, who pursues build a legacy, not just a lifestyle. He may live more simply, drive a reliable car instead of a trendy one. But he invests his resources into building a business that solves real problems for the community. He spends time mentoring younger people, passing on hard-earned lessons. He writes books and shares knowledge. When character B is gone, what he leaves behind isn't luxury items that lose value every day. It's a system of value that keeps operating. The people he helped will carry his ideas further. His name becomes a symbol of character, a way of living. That is legacy. And the transformation from character A into character B is the final destination of this journey. You don't live to impress other people's eyes. You live to carve your mark into their minds and into the flow of time. We've traveled a long distance intellectually. We've dissected the architecture of weakness, redefined strength, and painted the portrait of a person who commands their own destiny. But philosophy, no matter how deep, will remain nothing but dead words if it isn't translated into concrete action in this chaotic reality. Knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power. The most important question now isn't, do you understand? It's, how will you live when this video ends? How does an ordinary person living inside a society obsessed with speed and shallowness maintain sharpen cold focus? How do you keep the quiet force of you silence like a blade when you're surrounded by car horns, phone notifications, and workplace drama? This section is your answer. We won't talk about vague advice like, try harder. We're going to build a warrior protocol, a detailed 24-hour action system to integrate the 10 core principles into every breath and decision you make. 1. Morning protocol. Win the first battle. The awakening protocol. Your day is won or lost in the first 30 minutes after you open your eyes. Most people start the day like prey. Their first move is to grab the phone, shut off the alarm, and immediately scroll social media or check email. In that instant, they've already lost. They allow the outside world, negative news, other people's demands, social pressure, to invade and violate their mind before they've even built a single wall of defense. To apply kill the old you, ruthlessly, you must completely rewrite that ritual. Start with the no screen rule. For at least the first 30 to 60 minutes, keep your phone on airplane mode or leave it in another room. This is where you practice discipline is your weapon. The emptiness of no dopamine from your phone will make you uncomfortable. But that discomfort is necessary to train your brain. Instead of consuming information, use that time to set your inner state. Sit in absolute silence for 5 minutes. Observe your thoughts without judging them. This is the basic exercise of rule over emotion. Ask yourself, today, how would the strongest version of me behave? Visualizing the challenges of the day prepares your brain with response scripts so you won't be passive when reality hits. Remember, you wake up to hunt your goals, not to be hunted by other people's notifications. 2. Work protocol. The fortress of focus, the cold focus workflow. When work begins, your greatest enemy is distraction and fake busyness. We often mistake instant replies for productivity, but in truth, that's just weak reactivity. To apply Sharpen cold focus, you need deep work blocks, time windows that are non-negotiable. Imagine you're entering a bunker. Turn off all notifications. Close every unrelated browser tab. Your phone must be face down and out of sight. For the next 90 minutes, it's only you and the single most important task. If a thought rises and urges you to check Facebook or the news, identify it as the voice of the old you, and use discipline as your weapon to crush it. In an open office, this can be difficult because coworkers interrupt you. This is where you use command respect without asking. Put on headphones, even if you're not playing music, as a boundary signal. If someone taps your shoulder to talk about nonsense, remove the headphones slowly, look at them with calm eyes, no smiling, and say briefly, "I'm handling something important. I'll talk with you after 11. Then put the headphones back on and return to work. You don't need to apologize for focusing. That decisive action sends a message. Your time is valuable, and people will automatically adjust how they approach you. 3. Communication protocol. The power of silence. The silence strategy. The real-life application of use silence like a blade and stop living like prey will completely transform your social position. In meetings or social gatherings, observe your default habits. Do you nod excessively to look friendly? Do you add a nervous laugh to the end of every sentence? Do you rush to fill silence? If yes, stop immediately. Challenge yourself with the pause. When someone asks you a question, don't answer instantly like a machine. Pause. Hold eye contact for 2 to 3 seconds. Think. Then speak. That pause signals that you control the conversation, not that you're racing to please the other person. Your voice must drop lower. Your speed must slow down. Fast talkers are often afraid they'll be interrupted. That's prey thinking. Someone who speaks slowly and clearly signals that what they say matters, and others must wait to hear it, especially when you face disrespect or verbal attacks. Don't react with anger. Apply patience as savage. Look directly at the person with a neutral face, a poker face. Silence in that moment is the heaviest psychological punishment. It forces the attacker to reflect on their behavior and feel uncomfortable. You don't need to argue to win. You win by refusing to enter their low game. 4. Emotion and energy. Management protocol, the energy defense. Modern life is filled with emotional traps, traffic jams, bad news, toxic coworkers, negative online comments. To survive and grow, you must apply detach from what drains you with zero compromise. Conduct a serious energy audit. Write down 3 people or 3 activities that consistently leave you drained, exhausted, or angry after contact. Then plan to eliminate or reduce exposure as much as possible. If it's a friend who only complains, stop replying instantly. If it's doom-scrolling political news that poisons your mind, block that page. This isn't cruelty toward others. It's kindness toward yourself. You cannot build a legacy if your energy leaks out every day through these holes. When anger or anxiety hits, use the rule of detached observation. Imagine stepping out of your body and viewing the situation from above. Ask, will this matter in 5 years? If the answer is no, and 99% of the time it is, drop it immediately. Don't waste a second of your precious life feeding petty resentment or irritation. 5. Evening protocol. Reflection and rebirth. The reflection and reset. The end of the day isn't a time to collapse into laziness. It's a time to reinforce direction. Before sleep, instead of watching movies until late, spend 10 minutes practicing build a legacy, not just a lifestyle. Review the day with ruthless honesty. Did I live today like a hunter or like prey? Did I let emotion control any decisions? What did I do today that contributed to my long-term legacy? If you failed at something, don't torture yourself. Identify it, extract the lesson, and commit to doing better tomorrow. This is continuous sharpening. Then prepare for the next day. Write down the 3 most important tasks you must complete. Lay out your clothes, clear your desk. This preparation is discipline is your weapon in action, ensuring that when you wake up tomorrow, you already have momentum, without wasting energy on small, useless decisions. 6. Long-term mindset. Start small, stay ruthlessly consistent. I understand that applying all of this at once can feel overwhelming. That feeling is normal. Your old self will scream, resist, and find every excuse to pull you back into familiar comfort. Don't try to change 180 degrees overnight. Patience is savage reminds us that greatness is built from small bricks. Start with one change. Maybe this week you focus only on sharpen cold focus. No phone for the first hour of the day. That's it. When that becomes habit, add eye contact control. Then add boundary enforcement. Slowly, these small actions will compound and produce a qualitative transformation in who you are. Don't wait for a perfect moment or some divine burst of motivation. No one is coming to save you. No one will hand you a medal for suffering through discomfort. You are the architect, the builder, and the warrior defending your own life. Every time you choose silence instead of arguing, every time you choose deep work instead of scrolling, every time you choose to face something instead of running, that is you placing a solid brick in the castle of your legacy. Remember, applying these principles in the modern world is an act of rebellion. You are swimming against the current of comfortable mediocrity. You will become different, maybe even labeled cold, distant, or strange. But that is the price of excellence. Don't fear that difference. Embrace it. Because on the other side of brutal discipline and temporary loneliness is a freedom that people who live like prey will never taste. The freedom to fully command your own destiny. Of course, I understand that when you take in a worldview this strong and decisive, there will be opposing voices inside your mind. Maybe you, or the people around you, will say this way of living is too cold, too extreme, even heartless. Some will criticize that practicing sharpen cold focus or use silence like a blade will turn you into a soulless machine, stripping away naturalness and the warm connection between people. They'll fear that detached from what drains you is really selfishness, a turning away from the world just to obsess over yourself. Those concerns are completely reasonable, but they come from a basic misunderstanding of what strength truly is. Stoic restraint and discipline do not mean having no emotions. On the contrary, someone with inner mastery feels the deepest, but chooses not to be drowned by what they feel. Learning to rule over emotion isn't about becoming numb. It's about staying clear-minded enough to make the wisest decisions, even in the most heartbreaking situations. Ask yourself, who is more useful in a storm? Someone crying, panicking, and letting emotions pull them under? Or someone calm and cold enough to steer the boat? The coldness we're talking about here is actually a form of responsible love. You can't help others if you're drowning in your own chaos. You can't be a stable foundation for your family if you're still living weak like prey. Kill the old you ruthlessly, and building strict boundaries are not acts of hating the world. They are acts of respecting yourself and respecting what truly matters. When you stop wasting your energy on pointless things, you finally have the resources to give full attention and real love to the people who actually deserve it. This isn't selfishness. This is necessary self-preservation so you can contribute for the long run. Don't let the criticism of people addicted to comfort shake your resolve. The path to excellence is always lonely, but its destination is an absolute freedom the crowd will never understand. To close this journey through the 10 core principles of inner strength, I want you to burn one truth into your mind. Change doesn't happen when you nod along with what I say. It only begins when you turn this screen off and face the raw reality outside. We've armed you with the sharpest psychological weapons, from sharpen cold focus, use silence like a blade, to the mindset of kill the old you ruthlessly. But no matter how detailed the map is, it cannot walk for you. Don't let this video become just another cheap dopamine hit, tricking you into thinking you're improving simply because you watched it. Remember, you don't need recognition or applause from the crowd to feel valuable. The only thing you truly need is respect for yourself when you look in the mirror each morning. Real strength is the ability to maintain discipline and dignity when no one is watching, when it feels like the entire world is against you. Life is too short to live like prey, always afraid, always bowing your head. You were born with the potential to build a legacy, something timeless, not just a flashy, hollow lifestyle. Don't fear the loneliness on this path, because eagles never fly in flocks like sparrows. Have the courage to let go of what's holding you back. Accept the pain of shedding your old skin so you can reach the greatest version of yourself. Right now, I have a challenge for you. Don't scroll down to the comments looking for comfort. Don't click the next recommended video to chase another dose of fake motivation. Turn this device off. Stand up, take a deep breath, and do one disciplined action you've been postponing for far too long. Let that action be the first shot that declares the death of the old you and the birth of a new warrior. The power is in your hands. Start now.